Please go get comedian Jimmy Schubert and bring him in the studio, Spanish. I want to remind everybody, tonight, Bobby Kelly, 2 shows at Side Splitters, 2 shows tomorrow, but also tonight, Jimmy Schubert's at the 13th Annual Crack Up Cancer Comedy Benefit, which is happening at the Strauss Center, and they do have tickets still available. And then next week, we've just got a whole bunch of things. We got the Alien Pub Crawl, and we have... there he is. There's Jimmy Schubert.
Hey, good morning.
And then we have the brunch happening on Saturday. How you doing, buddy?
Good, buddy. How are you? Long time.
Fantastic. It is great to see you. I have so many things to talk to you about.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know what's so funny is that you and I are friends at Facebook, so I feel like I kind of like see you every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking how you haven't been in town in a long time, and then boom, you hit me up. I was like, oh, that worked out perfect.
Yeah, well, you know, I used to do the Bobby Kelly's, but the Side Splitters just has new owners. So
Yeah.
I just talked to him. It's funny, you posted something, and I got back in touch with the new owners, and he goes, "Yeah, hit us up for some dates in 20."
Oh, that's so funny.
Awesome. You know. But
so the guy who owns it now has been the guy who's been the manager.
Yeah.
So he knows the good comedy, because I'm always like, you can't possibly be bringing.
No.
What's that guy's name? I'm not saying he's not a good comedian, but he's been around since the Ron and Ron days of still doing what the guy who was on Friends once or something. He had
Tommy Blaze.
Tommy Blaze.
Yeah.
Now I'm not against him, but dude's been coming here in Side Splitters since I was in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you can't possibly be booking Tommy Blaze again.
No, they got Bobby Kelly. I mean, they got
they have
the new management, new bookings, new stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it's been great. But anyway, Jimmy Schubert is here with us.
Yeah.
Today. Now listen to this. I have to tell you this. Now tell me, back in the day with Ron and Ron, did you run with Bennington's Outlaws? That's what I was saying this morning.
The Disciples. It was the Disciples of Comedy. And
who were all the disciples?
Well, it was Mitch Walters. It was Carl LeBeau. It was myself, Lou Angel
Wolf, right?
Yeah, Lou Angel Wolf. It was Dan Carlson. A guy named Jeff Applehoff used to.
Oh, I know Applehoff.
No, Applehoff is huge.
Big NBC executive or show pitcher. You know.
Well, no, he produces a show called Don't Forget the Lyrics. But now he does Shazam with and also Mental Samurai with Rob Lowe. He's like the biggest game show, got like all these networks go. If you're doing a game, you go to Jeff Applehoff, who started with us at Ron Bennington. And Ron Bennington now is like the king of New York comedy scene, which is awesome because I mean, radio's a tough business, but he's been bopping around everywhere, and he finally kind of settled in New York, and
I call Ron Diaz the godfather of Tampa Bay radio.
Yeah.
Ron Bennington has become the godfather of comedy.
Oh, yeah. Well, all those guys, like Tommy Rhodes and Lou Angel, and all those guys were under Ron's tutelage, and he used to have a club here. So, and I spent a fair amount of time down here in Florida. That I used to live over in Boca and stuff, but I would do all those events, and it's amazing. It's just great to see everybody kind of have their success in life. That you started with these guys, and we're still all very tight. We're very close, and that's it's a great thing,
Bennington is doing the Creeps of Kids tour.
Yeah,
and we're working on trying to bring him in early next year, which will be, as far as I know, the first time Bennington's back here since the Ron and Ron days.
Yeah, wow, that's
that would be great. I'm telling you right now, if they play a Saturday and they have off on a Friday or a Sunday, they should do a Outlaws of Comedy benefit. I mean, the old school Ron and Ron fans, I would go that in a second.
Yeah, well, those, Ronnie's, it's just, I love that he's back doing stand-up now.
Yeah.
Like, he took the long way around, but I'm so glad that he's back doing stand-up now, and he's killing it. Like, everybody I talk to that knows him, all my buddies in New York go, I said, man, the guy took 20 years off, he comes back, he's a monster. Yeah. It's like, who does it? Who can do that?
Bert Kreischer told me years ago, he's like, hey, man, you know what I love? And I'm like, who? He's like, Ron Bennington.
Yeah.
He'd never been on the show yet or not, and Bennington was, I think back in the day, was just on XM when he tells me, and I was like, oh, yeah, from Ron and Ron. He goes, but seriously, now I listened to him, and he's so good, and I was like,
yeah,
you're hurting my feelings right now, Bert. And then for the next week, I just listened to Bennington every day, and I was like, he's right. He is great at what he does.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And now, now that you said he's doing Creeps with Kids tour, he does the Stand, he does, he does the Sell. He's back doing stand-up, which
he's a legit comic.
Yeah, legit comic, and great broadcaster as well. Like great interviewer. I just did not too long ago. My special came out called Zero Tolerance, which is available on my website, jimmyschubert.com. But Ronnie had me on for an unmasked, senseless plug, shameless plug, not senseless, but shameless. Yeah. It's early. I'm not done with my coffee yet, but. but Ronnie had me on for Unmasked. And I just love seeing my buddies, like, that you started with, that are all having their success now, and so it's great.
So I always have these great regards for you guys because I remember that's before I was in radio, and I used to listen to that.
Yeah.
And
they were some crazy days.
Oh, they were fun, though. You can't do a lot of the stuff that went on there. And your hearts can't handle doing all those drugs anymore.
No, thank God. It was a Hall of Fame career, but we retired the straw.
Right. And the straw.
Well, you can't even get plastic straws now. I mean, because a turtle got one stuck in his nose. I said, you know what? To hell with that turtle, all right? I had a plastic straw stuck in my nose for 7 years, and no one cared about me, all right? That turtle's going to hit bottom and get himself to a meeting. He'll be fine.
It's not my fault. I don't have to help the turtle out. Now, tell me about Sam Kinison. You also, I hear.
Yeah.
See, now these are the things like Mitchell Walters. I just hear stories about him now, and Bennington tells stories, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing stories about you at the Comedy Store for years, like just different fun, different things. Nothing embarrassing or crazy.
No. Well, look, I mean,
you put your time in, man. You had some fun episodes.
Yeah, I was a kid. I was a 25-year-old kid touring with the most controversial comedians in America, who had a bag of Bolivian Marching Powder, and we're like doing these arenas, and you're traveling all over the country by bus, and it was strippers and rock stars and blow. Oh my, strippers and block stars. And it was crazy. I mean, I'm glad I survived it. Believe me, I got about 6 brain cells left, and they're in a boat going, "Who's got the map? Who's got the map?"
How do you meet Sam first? Like, how do you become part of that?
Like
clique?
literally, when I was like 18 years old, man, I remember coming like at that whole summer, like I just worked 2 jobs. I worked at a construction site from like 6 to 3, and I bartended and worked, and I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I had really no social life. I just saved up about $15,000, and then at the end of the summer, I kind of put all my stuff in my car and drove out. And
later,
and I had these tapes called "The Psychology of Winning" by Dr. Dennis Waitley. I had these tapes and a little $20 bag of meth to
keep you awake.
Yeah, to keep me awake, to make sure to drive and just because I wanted to get out there. And I literally just kept listening to those tapes over and over again. And I literally hit Los Angeles. I got a place to live. I started working as a doorman at the Comedy Store and showcased for Mitzi, like all in like the same, like within 2 weeks.
Right, wow.
And then, but the day I actually got hired, I don't know if you remember Tony Clifton.
Yeah.
Which was a character that Andy Kaufman used to do. But what happened, like during the doing of that character, he handed it off to a guy named Bob Zamuda. So everybody thought Andy Kaufman was doing Tony Clifton.
Right.
But what happened was Andy had given it to his best friend Bob Zamuda to do. And so Tony Clifton was performing live at the con. This was like a year after I got there, and the paparazzi was around. Oh my God! And he was playing a joke on everybody. They thought he was playing a joke, and this is what was he was going to let everybody in on it. But it wasn't. It was just Bob Zamuda doing Tony Clifton, but there was like a crazy.
Was it entertaining at all on the side note, or was it just for the show?
No, it was just for the show.
Oh, really?
I mean, it didn't even last long. I think he threw a drink on somebody and flicked cigarettes on somebody and just grossed everybody out. And people started running for the exits. I go, well, that was horrible. But it was like, it was a big prank,
Right.
And I think Bob Zamuda do it like because he knew everybody would think it was Andy. And,
sure.
So, but it was fun. Those times in comedy was like, ground zero. Everything was like, I could watch like, Dice Clay and Arsenio Hall and Gary Shandling and Louis Anderson and George Carlin and Richard Pryor was coming in.
That was the thing. That was all the people that we refer to as the greats now all came from that time.
And I had a front row seat, man. I was working the door there, and I got to sit there and watch all these amazing comedians, which is like, it's so funny because I watched these guys, and that's how I learned how to do stand-up. And, my style of stand-up is like that old style, like bing, 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 an old school banger is what they call them.
So I have a situation that came up a couple of weeks ago that I want to ask you about that I don't know if you've heard about this yet.
No, good.
So Galvin does a news story that said in the news story that Richard Pryor Jr. is saying that Paul Mooney.
Right.
He had a sexual relation. Wait, I'm sorry. It was a bodyguard that wrote a book.
Richard Pryor. Yeah,
bodyguard for Richard Pryor wrote a book. Said that Paul Mooney had sex with Richard Pryor Jr. and that Richard got so mad that he was trying to hire a hitman for $1 million to kill Paul Mooney, who was his good friend.
Yeah.
And then Richard Pryor, while he was in the process of doing that, sets himself on fire. And, of course, that all goes away, and nobody's talked about it. So we talk about this on the air, and then a buddy of ours who is in L.A. says, I was just on this podcast with Richard Pryor Jr., listen to this. And he sends us a clip, and he said that one time he was at Sam's house with Sam and Carla Bove.
Uh-huh.
And Sam said, listen, you know I like to do anything that's bad for you. That's what I get off. And he asked Richard Pryor Jr. to bang him. And they did drugs and watched porn, and Richard Pryor Jr. claims that he had sex with Sam Kinison.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't think it's a possibility.
I mean, here's the thing. You would know.
I think the guy's trying to sell books.
I agree.
And I know Paul Mooney. I don't think, it's easy to say these things when these guys are dead.
Of course.
And obviously Paul's having health issues now, and I don't,
he didn't say that about Paul. So listen to this. So I get him booked on the show.
Right.
And we said, hey, we talked to his agent. We said we got these things we want to talk to him about, and he's like, he's got this book he's pushing. I was like, great, let's put him on the air. My first question to him was about Paul Mooney. I was trying to set up the Sam thing, and he hangs up on me. Evidently, that's the one thing you're not allowed to ask him about. Sam.
Well, then why would you write it in your book, though? Look, but I see a lot of that stuff. It's like, like I have a problem with people, like after someone passes away, the Michael Jackson documentary about this thing.
Right.
It's like the guy's not even here to defend himself. So it's really not fair to say those things.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumors about Kinison for and I go, I've never saw anything remotely close to it. I mean, I hung out with the dude for I was on tour in close proximity. I mean, the guy would go to strip clubs. He had two girls. It was two sisters. He was messing around. I mean, if the guy was a gay guy, if he was a gay guy, boy, he was did the best job I've ever seen of anybody hide it.
He even brought Carl into it. He said that, Carl and I think you're hot. And then I was wondering, listen,
no way.
I think
no way.
I think in the 80s with all the drugs. And see, now, people say this about Richard Pryor, and I didn't know if it was true or not. And then the Marlon Brando stuff came out where it said he had sex with Marlon Brando. And I was like, can this be real? And then I watched the Richard Pryor roast, an old school roast with Richard Pryor where he was getting roasted.
Right.
And at the end, he got up and he made a couple of jokes about Paul Mooney, called him a queer, called him a fag. He's right there in the thing. And then he says in the thing, he's like, all right, I'm going to tell you. He goes, because Paul's got one story on me where he thinks he's going to use this against me for the rest of his life. He's going to tell you. He's like, I can't say the way he said it, but he said, I went down on this guy one time. And Richard Pryor talks about doing gay stuff. He was pretty open about that.
Yeah, he was open about it, but I think it was when he was younger, and it was
experimental, maybe.
Well, I think when he was a kid, I heard him talk about it in his stand-up, and that's what you loved about Richard Pryor was his honesty.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've heard you can't just go around saying that. A guy's no longer here to defend himself. I've never saw anything like that with Kinison or Bo. I mean, and we were in Vegas, dude. I mean, in Vegas, doing the dunes. I mean, we would go to the Olympic Gardens, and you walk in there with Billy Idol and Sam and White Wedding, and they start putting up. And next thing you know, you're coming out of that place with three girls. And I remember one night in Vegas, we were doing the dunes at 7:30 and 9:30 and 11 o'clock, and so literally after each one of those shows. A woman had come back to my room. We had sex, and then I thought, wow, 3 women in one would be interesting. And then about 3 o'clock, and I was exhausted. We've been partying, and I hear a knock on the door, and I open up as one of the girls from the Olympic Gardens in a trench coat with some stuff. I go, all right,
switch
number 4. Here we go. Let's go for the record.
Yeah. See, that's what I just thought maybe. There was a period where I didn't know. I figured you would either say what you said, no, there's no way, or I don't know. Sam was so messed up at some point, you never know what would happen.
Yeah, well, look, I don't think I've never saw it. I mean, I heard people say stuff like that, but again, Sam. I also know Sam. Sam would never deny or confirm rumors.
Yeah.
I mean, when that Rolling Stone article came out, they worship cats, they do satanic rituals. No, they didn't. I mean, but it was all for like to make them bigger than it was life.
Sure.
And I remember one time we're hanging at Crest Hill, that house behind the Comedy Store, and I was talking with Billy Idol, who was like one of these, like he had he had like a Jeff cap with like 666 upside down crosses, just for the imagery of it. But he also said, I get away with a lot of things, and because people expect that from me.
Yeah.
So they and whatever I do, it's like always 10 times worse than what it was initially. And he goes, and so I can have a lot of fun with it. And I think a lot of those celebrities do that.
Sure. Especially Sam at that time.
Oh yeah, he was crazy. Yeah, there was a copious amounts of party favors, absolutely. But I mean, we were up to. Here's what I remember. I remember we would come up Creston with Mark Maron, who was a young comic, and me and him were both doormen, and like the guys would come up to the Crest Hill house afterwards, and there was and we would sit and talk comedy.
Right.
I mean,
what comedians do.
Yeah, like the principles and how Sam came up with his delivery, and like we would just grill him about comedy. That's what I remember.
Right.
And of course, Sam would be drinking and partying, and as we all were. But I mean, I had a day job. I had to get up in the morning and go to work and stuff. But I would always, it was like great. I mean, that's what I remember. And Maron was there as well.
Yeah.
Maron. I mean, Mark's talked about it on his podcast, and so it was an interesting time, but I don't remember any of that. I mean, I knew Paul was gay, but Paul never hit on anybody at the Comedy Store. He never tried to, I didn't see any of that.
Right.
I mean, there were, obviously Louis Anderson and those guys were like, but I mean, you just kind of minded your own business, and I was only there for the stand-up. I was there to get better as a stand-up.
So you never banged Sam?
No. I mean, I slept with Mitzi, sure. I slept with Mitzi.
You did sleep with Mitzi?
Yeah.
What about Roseanne?
Well, that was a one-night situation. You want to hear the funniest story?
I do.
No,
I do want to hear that.
Well, it's story's been out of the bag. Yeah. So, like, I'm a young comic at the store. I'm working the door, and Roseanne came out, and she showcased for Mitzi. She was a housewife from Denver for 3 quids, and she comes out literally destroys in the original room. Like, I've never seen, she murdered it.
Right.
And for like 7 minutes, just killed it and had this great thing. And then Mitzi was so excited because she was a female comedian. And I watched the whole thing that night.
Yeah.
And then she went over to the main room, which is the bigger room. And Jim McCauley, the talent coordinator for the Tonight Show, was there. And he was always looking at it like, then if you could get to the Tonight Show, you were made. That was still very prevalent. And Roseanne went on in the main room, and Jim McCauley saw her. 2 weeks later, she got the Tonight Show, and then she got the Roseanne Show, and she was off to the races.
Wow, that quick, huh?
Okay, yeah, like that quick. Like, that was amazing. And so that night, she has 2 killer sets. Jim McCauley was so she's drinking and partying, and she runs and says, people tell me I'm the female Sam and all this thing. No, they hit it off. They were, but I think she got too hammered, and Sam said, Shuby, could you give Roseanne a right back? And he cut out a little bump of booger sugar for me. And so I said, yeah, and back then, I was pretty new to LA, but I knew, I was still living. I was renting a room in a house in Culver City, and she said Olympic Boulevard. Now, this was before GPS and smartphones, and so I took her to Olympic Boulevard. But she goes, I don't recognize this. This ain't the place. Now I got a drunk Roseanne who doesn't know where she lives. It's like 2:00 in the morning, and part of my lease is no overnight guests and all this stuff. Like, I'm not going to put this woman on the street. I can't put her on the street. Yeah. Whatever. I'm going. I'll deal with it in the morning. So I got to say, listen, I got to sneak into my house. I'll, put a little. You can sleep on the floor, and the more because she was drunk.
What a gentleman, sleep on the floor.
Yeah. Well, I had a single, bro. I had a single. You know what I mean? I
got you.
You know what I mean? I put it on a thing and a pillow and stuff. I mean, that's all I had available. I was renting a room in a house, bro. I was a broke kid going after his dream. And of course, I get ready for bed. I get, back then I had a 29-inch waist. You know what I mean? I could shoot ceilings. I could shoot flies off the ceilings with this thing. You know what I mean? I'm getting ready for bed in my boxer shorts, and she's like right there. And next thing you know, she grabs me, and there's a little mouth to south resuscitation. And next thing you know, and so that happened. And then the next morning, I dropped her at the bus station. She called her friends, and obviously and I ran into her that night at the Comedy Store. And she goes, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't say anything, because I go, you know what? I appreciate it if you didn't say anything. The 2 of us, you're the one who has bragging rights. Yeah. Now, I don't see her for 29 years. Never run into her at a comic club, which is really rare. I never see her for 29 years. The next time I see Roseanne, she's a judge on Last Comic Standing. And I'm one of the contestants. Now, I've told this story on Maron's, and only because Maron knew.
Right.
You know, he knows where all the bodies are buried. And so I come out, I was like, and I go up literally 26 of 26 into this taping. It was a 6.5 hour taping.
Now, what are you thinking? Are you like, she's going to recognize me, or?
No, I'm just worried about focusing on my stand-up. I want to do a good job. I want to pass. I want to get to the next level. But also in the back of my mind, I wonder if she heard the marriage story. And she go, no, you're not good, you know. But I come out and I murdered it.
Yeah.
And like halfway through it, she's sitting there with her arms folded, and she does one of these. I remember you, because once you've been on the business end of the Irish Hammer, you don't forget. It's so funny. But you know, even then, I guess we were both kind of uncomfortable. You know, we never addressed it or talked about it. You know, we were both professionals, but I mean, it did happen. I did tell a story before, so I didn't mind telling it now. But I also have a tremendous amount of respect for Roseanne.
Sure. A long time ago, you're both kids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you didn't discuss it with her the entire time of Last Comic Standing?
No, I didn't.
Not even like, hey, we hung out one time.
No. She knew.
I know she knew.
I didn't know reason to address it. I remember that one time me and you both made.
You're not the worst person she's had sex with. I mean, look at her
I could have been
record.
Tom Arnold, bro.
Yeah.
I could have been Tom Arnold. No, it's.
If you didn't make her sleep on the floor, you might have been.
Yeah, had I shed my bed, but it was a single. I mean, I was, you know, but it was, you know, but you know, and then Mitzi obviously I was a young, you know, this is back before the hashtag Me Too movement.
Right.
You know, it's just, you know. I could have had my own hashtag Me Too story. Like, but if a guy comes out, you know, with hashtag, what are you, a weirdo?
Yeah, right.
You know?
It's a girl. Enjoy it.
Yeah. But I was a kid, man.
Come
I was
on,
like,
Jimmy,
I mean, she was she was in like her late 40s.
Was she attractive? Like, I've seen pictures of her.
Yeah, she was hot, bro.
Yeah.
She was like in her day. She was hot. You know, she was a little older. I was younger, but still, I was the younger guy, older woman fantasy.
Yeah,
She was Mitzi Shore, for God's sake.
All right, how do you not do that?
Yeah, and so, you know, I had my fair share of my little trysts back in the day, but always.
Give me one more. Anybody else you might know? Throw one at us. You're not bragging. I'm asking for it.
No, that's it, really. That was it, really.
Boy, that must have been fun times, man.
Dude, it was crazy. But, I mean, you know, it wasn't like it is today. It's back when stand-up was stand-up.
Right.
I mean, you know, you got everybody getting all upset about every little thing today. Everybody's triggered. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, they ruin everything. You can't even, you know, they ruin everything. It's like music. Hey, you get 99 cents for your song, which iTunes takes 30 cents of. You know, you can sell a song that you worked your heart out on, and for 99 cents, the same money you spent for an app that makes a fart noise, by the way. I was like, yeah, great.
We were saying this morning that the only way to get your record played now is to get it in a commercial. Yeah. To get in a TV commercial.
Well, I mean, you know, all this technology is great, but it's changing entire industries. Yeah. I mean, you know, like everything's like streaming now. Like
Mark Maron's doing his goddamn job my goddamn job in his garage.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's like that. It's changed everything, you know. And I don't know necessarily for the better. I mean, you know, I used to do a lot of acting. You were able to make enough money to get your health insurance.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know, you got to work, do 3 times as many jobs, which is almost damn near impossible now because of the, you know, the opportunities aren't there. A lot of the stuff's being shot in Atlanta now.
What did I see you in? You were in a suit. I can't remember where the hell it was. You were, I mean, I know I've seen you in a bunch of King of Queens, but there was something where you were wearing like a suit. It was a movie. Oh, God damn it. I don't know what I remember going, hey,
the Italian Job.
Yeah,
I played a cop.
Exactly what it was because it's been on HBO a lot lately.
Yeah,
exactly what it is.
I played a Philly detective like my old man. I remember I was telling my dad I'm going into audition. It was on Father's Day, and I said I'm going into audition for a Philly cop. He goes, well, good luck, and I wound up getting that job.
Oh, that's awesome.
Was Charlize Theron, which was a nice little scene, and F. Gary Gray directed that, who was amazing.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie, and they did it like, you know, I like when they do a remake and they do it justice. You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of these movies, you go, okay, how many times you can redoing Spider-Man?
Right.
How many times?
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's like it's been 10 years. You've had 3 different Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and they went, well, the movie industry is not what it used to be. I go, because you keep trying to sell me the same movie over and over.
Rent a new movie for the love of God.
I've seen Transformers 1. I've seen Transformers 4 and 5. It's the same. Let me guess. These robots turn into, like, you know, things, right? Wow. Oh, you really?
Pitch this movie to me. These robots turn into things.
Yeah.
This is Jimmy Schubert who's here. Jimmy's going to be at the 13th annual Crack Up Comedy benefit. Crack Up Cancer Comedy Benefit, which is happening at the Strauss Center tonight. You can get tickets. They're still available at crackupcancer.com.
Yeah, can we give a couple away to your listeners?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
StraussCenter.org. Now tell me there's other people on this event with you. It's,
Dean Napolitano.
It's Saturday night, by the way.
I'm sorry, what did I say? It's the 14th. That's tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's Saturday night. Dean
about
Napolitano, who is hilarious. Mike McCarthy, another
he's here.
really funny guy, and our host, who's the girl that's
Catherine Maloney.
Catherine Maloney. Have you seen her? She's really good.
Yeah. So it's like it's an incredible lineup. I mean, it's a great. And it's for a great cause. I mean, they keep the money in this community, and they help a lot of people tremendously. It's like you go, well, you've been diagnosed and you're doing all this other stuff, and now what? And they help people in a lot of different ways, and they have grants and stuff, and so it's all helping people inside your own community. And what a better way to come out and have some really good laughs,
right?
And also do something really positive, And so
people love to donate money, and certainly cancer is one of those things that you want to donate.
Well, you're doing a good thing and helping and donating, but you're also but there's drinks and food, and why not come out and have a great time? And
crackupcancer.com or StraussCenter.org, and you can get your tickets there online and go see Jimmy. You'll like Catherine Maloney. She's beautiful and she's funny.
Yeah, I've heard that. Al Ramos is a buddy of mine. It was that they were involved in selecting the talent, and a lot of good.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me they were involved. I was like, how did Al Ramos get Catherine Maloney? I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
No. Well, he's they're both married.
Oh, I have no idea.
No, he was married. We were talking outside about how Al helped book the shows and get people involved and stuff. It's always good, so Al's involved, so they bring in the talent,
Right.
I mean, Al knows what's funny. He's not bringing any ham and eggers in for this event. You gotta, bring out the big guns.
Good. Well, listen, I love having you here. I love having you in town. You're always welcome on the show.
Oh man, thank you for having us.
Crackupcancer.com, and according to Jimmy Schubert, Sam Kinison did not bang Richard Pryor Jr.
No, not even. No, not to my knowledge. I don't think he would have. Yeah. I mean, I think Sam was in awe of Richard. I mean, he was. They hung out. I remember one time it was Sam and Mitchell Walters, and and Richard Pryor was, hey man, he was hanging out, and they jumped in Richard's car and they drove to his house in Bel Air.
Uh-huh.
And they get into this house, and it's empty. There's nobody there, but it's a giant palatial estate, and there really wasn't a lot of furniture in it. It was empty. There was nobody in it. And Richard reached into his pocket, and he pulls up this wad of bills, all wadded up. And in the center of the bills was this big rock of cocaine. And they came back, and they were they were depressed because their hero was living in
empty
this
house,
empty house. Nobody was there. Nobody around to love him and care about him. And and the guy was just sitting there and just like by himself in this giant house, getting on and go, oh my God! They were kind of bummed out.
Well, clearly they both changed their lives after that. Sam.
Look, I'm glad I survived those times. I'm glad it's over. I would, that was fun, but I'm glad and I don't do that anymore or get involved in any of that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's good. You had to live a good, interesting life.
Yeah, it was fun. Like you said, those are good stories.
Yeah.
And in order to have good stories, you got to make bad decisions.
Exactly. Go see Jimmy Schubert, Strauss Center tomorrow night. Crack Up Cancer. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. Crackupcancer.com and StraussCenter.org. You can get your tickets at either place. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, man.
We'll take a quick break. It's the Mike Calta Show, the 6 at 9. Coming up next.
You're listening to the Mike Calta Show on 102.5 The Bone.